All of the food we eat and much of the clothing we wear comes from plants and animals that are raised on farms. Farms are different in type, in size, and even in name.
Welcome to Barn Talk. What happens at the barn stays at the barn until the heat and the flies drive us out, or until we let all the information out. And that's what we're going to do for you here tonight. I'm Torque.
And I'm Sawyer. And all we ask for you guys, if you get value from this podcast or you think it's funny or you got something from it, send it out to your coworkers, send it out to your family, send it out to your friends. Just share it, because we're trying to grow this thing. We're trying to reach as many people as we possibly can, try to give value to as many people as we possibly can. We're trying to do some good. So share it out. That's all we ask from you guys.
It's been a hell of a week.
It sure has been a hell of a week. It's gone really, really fast. As I've grown up, as I'm getting up in the years,
yes,
in my age of 21 years old, I've come to realize once you get out of school, time just seems to just fly by.
We're always very eager for spring. I love spring and I love planting season, but once that seed's in the ground, then it's just like time just evaporates, because there's so much to do, and everything that you know, when the weather's crappy and all winter long, you think about, oh, we're just gonna crush it. We gotta get this done and this done and this done, and then we've had a heck of a lot of rain. I mean, it's rained
an unreasonable amount this week, especially. There's been tons of rain.
It's rained about every day. Today was the first day that I think we had most of the day was clear, and it was dry enough we could do a few things. We've been puttering around, taking care of the fairer sexes of the residences.
We sold some pigs this week out of my barn. We've been selling pigs out of my barn for 2 weeks now. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. I think there's probably 5 or 6 loads left in there.
Probably 6 loads.
6 loads left in there, and we're going to sell 3 more this upcoming Friday.
1 a.m.
1 a.m. It's always, we kind of got the crapshoot. I don't know if this is for everybody out there that's a hog farmer, but for us, our integrator, we got to sell pigs late at night. So it's either get like 9 o'clock at night, or you get like 10:30, or you get 1 to 6 a.m. the next morning. And
yeah,
we always like the 6 a.m. the next morning, and we always like the early 9 o'clock loads. But
9 o'clock is pretty awesome. That's a pretty good deal if you can get it. But there are dock times. It all goes off dock time. So, if we're going to St. Joe, Triumph, usually they have like 5 a.m. dock times. And so you back figure it's going to take them 3 hours to get there. So you're going to be loading at 1:32, because usually you sell 3 loads. Now, we also go to Ottumwa. We go to JBS in Ottumwa. And those are usually more flexible. We get a lot of those that are 10:30 at night. And then we'll go to Monmouth, Illinois, or we'll go to Macon, Missouri, and go to Smithfield. And those are kind of usually late night or early morning. You'll get some 6 a.m. loads that go to Milan once in a while. But anyway, there's no consistency, because
you never get used to it. I mean,
no,
you really don't. Your sleeping schedule kind of gets messed up for the rest of the week. But good thing it's on a Friday and not on a Tuesday or Wednesday, because it's hard to get up in the morning when you get done at 3 a.m. But
yeah, that's the problem, is you load and you get done at 3:30, and then if you're like me, you are wide awake and you sit and have a bowl of cereal and ponder life's existence. And
you know what's funny thing about cereal? Another thing, as you get older, it's not really a breakfast thing anymore.
Nope.
It's a midnight snack. Cereal's
good anytime.
It is, but I feel like it's more of a right before you go to bed kind of thing. I don't feel like we're the only ones that think that. I think that's and the Honey Nut Bunches of Oats, those are the
Honey Bunches of Oats.
Honey Bunches.
You got the Honey Nut Cheerios and the Honey Bunches of Oats.
Yeah, cinnamon sugar Cheerios. I think those are damn good. But
too much.
Yeah, another thing, if you guys hear some birds in the barn, we are shooting this podcast in a barn. So if you hear some chirping, there's actual probably birds either outside the barn or inside the barn. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can kind of hear it outside my headphones. So bear with us on that.
I can see them, and the flies have started to come. I think
Yes.
we're going to have to get the tempo out and hose this whole thing down.
These are the I guess repercussions of actually shooting in a barn. You got birds coming in, and we don't have all the holes patched up where they need to be. So we're trying our best here, but bear with us.
We've been going to do that, but we haven't gotten around to it.
We also got some landscaping done today, so it was finally nice enough. It rained all week, and today was probably the first day that it was actually really nice. I was actually hot. It felt like summer today. So we went out and we pulled weeds, we weed whacked, we mowed.
Sweetheart's happy.
Yeah, my girl's happy. My girlfriend Kat. If you don't know who that is, I had her on a YouTube video on her farm channel, and people seem to like her. She's a ball of energy. But we got her. We put her outside, got her to work. She loved that. Mom loved that. My mom, and it was nice.
Yeah, we got most of the list done. We didn't get everything, but we got close.
Yeah, and Dad also put some saddles. So my grandpa had horses, and he's had some old saddles in this barn. And Dad's getting eager. He sees what we did up here, and he's just trying to do it all over. He likes it, and I like it too. But this week, out of nowhere, I came in the barn one day with Kat, and that's my girlfriend's name, Kat, and we looked into this room, and there were saddles hanging up on 2x4s that you hung. And my girlfriend is a horse girl. She wants horses so damn bad, and
it's very risky.
It's a very risky deal. I told her we got to make some stupid money before we get horses, because horses are nothing but a money pit. So
yeah, it's the best way to get rid of money is just get horses.
We're just telling her that she ain't getting any. Dad says he's going to take all the fences out. He's going to just take all the fences out before we get to that point, but I don't think.
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. We'll probably have a weak moment at some point, but yeah, cleaning out the barn this week, it brings back. So I'm in the process of still. You have to make those hard decisions because there's all the stuff that has always been here from the last generation. And there's no good reason for it to be here other than it's always been here. And so you walk around it and you rationalize that, you just
need to keep it.
Just need to keep it. And then finally one day you're like, well, I know for a fact that if my dad was around, he would probably be like, what are you keeping that around for? Because a lot of that stuff, at one point we had probably 8 high-wheeled wagons. We had a bobsled, we had a sleigh, we had a buggy, we had the whole 9 yards of horse-drawn equipment, because that was kind of my dad's hobby. He grew up with that stuff, and when the generation before him was all selling out, he went to a lot of farm sales around the neighborhood and bought wagons and all that stuff, and back before they were worth much. And anyway, we got rid of most of them. I kept one high-wheeled wagon that we're probably going to tear it apart and bring it up here and put it up in the hay mow up on the...
That, or we'll keep it for when I have some kids and we can bring them around, or we'll turn it into one.
You'll go the parade route?
I guess we'll take them on a parade route, I guess. I don't know, something. Kat likes it. She doesn't want to get rid of it,
But anyway, I've been working on cleaning out downstairs because there's a lot of stuff there that's been there forever. And so in the process of doing that, I cleaned up a bunch of the old harness and bits and pieces and got rid of that. But we've got 6 saddles. I didn't realize we had the really little ones from when we were little. When I was a kid, we had quarter horses. We had 2 quarter horses. We had 8 mules. We had 4 teams of mules. And at one point, I think my dad hitched up 3 teams one time. And we used to take them to town and do the parade thing, and it was all. And then at one point, we had a purebred Arabian, and only my dad could ride him. One of my brothers tried to ride that horse, and he threw him off in about.
Ended very badly.
Yeah, but.
What did he do to break in that horse, or try to break in that horse?
Well, this isn't.
This is a pretty good story.
Yeah, so we bought him at the sale barn, and he was already broke to ride. But Arabians are very strong-willed, and if you didn't ride him a lot, he would get funny ideas, basically, that he didn't really want anybody on his back. And so he threw my brother off, and my dad got on him, and he tried to throw my dad off, but he had a pipe in his hand, and when he tried to throw him off, he cracked him between the ears with the pipe, and then he calmed down, and after that, my dad could ride him anytime he wanted to, but nobody else ever rode
gave it
him.
a shot.
No. And I was little. I never tried to ride him, but I'd ride the quarter horses. I learned to ride on a mule. We had a Jenny mule, and she was so I think she was probably just elderly, but you could just turn her with her ears and she'd go wherever you wanted her to, and that was how I learned to ride. But anyway, we haven't had any horses around for a long time, and that's probably why our net worth has gone up, because we got rid of all the horses.
Well, I know. I'm glad we don't have any, because it would be another thing I'd have to spend my time on. I got so many things I'm juggling already, and if I had a horse and my girlfriend came along, that's another thing we'd have to probably do.
Yeah. So the last horses that we had, my dad bought a team of small draft horses, and I can't remember what the breed of them were, but anyway, he had those, and one of them died, and we just had this one lone horse, and the poor thing was lonely. I mean, we didn't have any other animals or anything. And my dad, he couldn't ride, and he'd go out and rub his ears once in a while. But anyway, our neighbor, they got 3 kids.
Little kids, 3 or 4.
3 or 4 kids.
Yeah.
And it's like a petting zoo up there. They got everything, dogs and goats and I don't know what all. Anyway, when my dad passed, the neighbor asked whether or not we'd be interested in selling that horse. And I told him that if they were willing to give it a good home, that they could come and get it. And so they brought their trailer down, and, they thought we were going to have to shoe this horse and wrangle it into the trailer. I just walked up to him and put a halter on him and just let him into the trailer, because he's pretty gentle. He's an old horse. But anyway, my neighbor, he leans over and he says, "So, how much hay do you feed this horse?" And I just patted him on the back and I said, "He'll eat as much as you'll give him."
As much as what you're willing to pay, he'll eat it.
Anyway, he's still living his best life there. I think those kids spent a lot of time with him. And
yeah, it's good for him. That was a good decision on our part.
It was a good decision.
Because he wasn't getting the attention he needed here.
So speaking of great investments, here is your Friday market update.
Short. Let's make it a short one. We kind of rambled there for a little bit.
It is short, and it's also a little bit painful because it's not near as good as what it was last week. So I think we had the conversation of whether or not Torque was going to pre-sell any corn to the feed mill, because I think it was $5.97.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it's right there. If you consider $5.30 right there. So October corn delivered to the mill today was $5.30. So it's off its high a little bit. Everything going on, the chaos has driven the market down. But you can still get $7.01, cash corn still $7.01 to the mill. But the river, I think, the river might be like $6.88. So pretty strong market right around us, a lot of the feeders. And then beans are, I got to look, $15.31 in Burlington and $15.53 in Quincy. And hogs are still high. Another interesting thing is I think hogs are around 114 or 115, and I think cattle are around 117. And so there was some talk this week whether cash hogs or whether futures hogs would get to be worth more than what cattle, because that doesn't happen
very often.
But it might. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And
well, didn't you say some experts are saying that future hogs aren't going to be? They're going to just come up with all these hogs, but you don't think so.
USDA doesn't know anything. I mean, yeah,
they know a little bit.
They
don't know.
If I had to pick a government agency to fill in for the IRS if I got audited, my number one pick would be USDA, because I'm pretty sure that they could not make hide nor hair of my books for my taxes.
Well, now the IRS is coming for you.
No, I don't think so. They are going to get a bunch of money. Biden's going to give them a bunch of money, so they're going to go root out all the tax cheats. But we don't make any money anyway, so it doesn't.
That's
it doesn't
right. We're
matter.
farmers.
That's
we're
right.
We're cash poor. So
We don't make any. We don't make anything.
That's right.
The crypto market is terrible.
Dog shit.
So terrible. I think Bitcoin's about
30. I don't know. Isn't it like 33, 35?
I think it got down to 33. It's probably around 35. And Ethereum's down below 2,000. I think it's 1,500. And yeah, they're all kind of on the skid. Stocks on the skids.
Stocks are on the skid. It's just everything. Real estate's high and everything else is kind of crappy.
Yeah. So, but buy and hold.
Buy and hold.
Everything's
Time in the
on
market.
sale.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Everything's
how you
on
look
sale.
at it. That's how you got to look at it. And I think people that bought out of it or sold out of it we had this conversation like 3 episodes ago, but the people that got in, they were in it for the hype, and then now that it's down, they're selling because
they're all.
You gotta know what it's for and what it's actually, what the purpose of it is. If you believe what it's about instead of just believing in the hype and you actually research it, you'd probably stay in Bitcoin. But if you're somebody that just got in because of the hype of Bitcoin, then you probably sold out. So.
This glass is more than half empty, but I look at it like it's half full. So I'm a positive.
We're drinking a little bit tonight. That's a first. We haven't done that yet.
Well,
don't judge me here, okay? I just got introduced to this Exile sour beer probably a month ago or something. And me and my girlfriend, we kind of like drinking this together. It's called Beatnik Sour Exile. I don't know if you like sour beers out there. I'm not an IPA guy, but I kind of like sour beers to sip. But I brought some backups too. So I'm a Busch Light guy and an Ultra guy. So I like just sipping this after a good day of landscaping on a Sunday or Friday afternoon. But yeah, this is pretty good. But
No.
I got my backups after this.
It's not that good. It tastes like you dumped the bad part of a Sour Patch Kid into a bottle of beer.
Don't be hating. Don't be hating on me.
I'm old and I can't drink very much, and I get full, so I just poured myself a small glass of Rabbit Hole Derringer. I'd never tried that before, but that's a new bottle of bourbon that I got. It's pretty good.
I feel like this is just an observation, but I feel like that you
This is going to be bad.
ever since you got done watching Yellowstone, you saw John Dutton. You've been getting kind of on the whiskey, a little bit of the bourbon whiskey.
Yeah. I guess I don't know.
That show's so good.
I would take that, and maybe subliminally that is what happened. I don't know. I've kind of moved into whiskey, I don't know, long time ago. When I worked at PSI, one of the guys that worked there, he was a big home bar guy, and he had everything, but he liked whiskey pretty well, and he kind of got me on that. But I was always a mixer. I didn't drink much straight. But then, I don't know, it's probably been about 2 years ago. I think I had some Elijah Craig maybe, and I thought it was pretty decent. And then I've bought a few odds and ends, and I did not realize that the bourbon, if you go down the bourbon or whiskey rabbit hole, that is like, it's like everything. That can be like a hoarder's paradise, because some of these people, they just
Collect a
buy
ton
bottles.
of it.
Yeah, and I'm not quite that bad, but I do like it a little bit.
We got some ideas for this barn that you guys are going to see over the life of this barn. We're going to do little improvements here as much as we possibly can. We got some things in the works, and it might have to relate to some whiskey, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, unless we get really slow, because I was just sitting up here tonight thinking how last week we were in sweatshirt and we said, well, I don't know if short sleeves is ever going to come, and then tonight we're like, whew.
This is what summer will feel like.
Yeah, this is going to be good. And then I was thinking, what are we going to do when winter comes again? So maybe we'll have to spend some money on heating and cooling before we get to the bar.
We're going to have to get some sponsors before we do that.
But it would be nice to have a bar up here.
It sure would be. The only liquor I can ever drink straight is Crown Apple Sprite. Or Crown Apple. I can
That's
drink it with
trash.
Sprite. Crown Apple, you can put a little water in that. Oh, you're good. I could drink it with Sprite too, but if I had to drink it, I drink it with Sprite the first couple glasses, but after that, I could just drink it straight, no problem.
That's trash.
Uh-huh.
I like Crown.
That's probably why I like sour beer too, because it's kind of got that appley sour taste to it.
Sawyer might have had a little bit of lead paint as a small child.
Probably.
He's never quite been right since.
Probably. You didn't keep much of an eye on me, so.
It is probably a reflection.
So what are we going to talk about today?
This is a little bit of a tie-in to the very long podcast we had last week, because we kind of went down a few rabbit holes.
That was our true, that was a walk into our mind. That was like
walk into our mind.
An introduction into what our minds are like when we're not thinking about ag and farming and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but to tie in with that, we're going to talk about betting on yourself. And that's a good T-shirt phrase, but we're going to break that down a little bit, because no matter what you're doing, whether you're self-employed or whether you work for somebody else, whether you work from home, whether you work construction, whatever you're doing, really, if you got to have faith in yourself first, because if you don't believe in yourself, so when I say you got to bet on yourself, you got to believe in yourself. You got to know yourself, which that's hard.
Takes time to figure that out.
It can be a little scary, because nobody likes to admit all their flaws, and we're all pretty flawed.
Right.
We're all very flawed, let's face it. I mean, that's just how it is. But if you don't believe in yourself, you can't really expect somebody else to believe in you. And I guess one of my thoughts on that is, in our society, we put a lot of faith. Well, we were talking about our crypto, and we were talking about markets,
stocks, all that stuff.
We put a lot of faith in our investments, that our investments are going to take care of us over time, that our 401k is going to grow. We go buy a lottery ticket and we dream that we're going to win the lottery.
Favorite sports teams. We put a lot of faith in sports teams.
Right. And the best bet, if you're going to talk about any of those things, the best bet you can make is on yourself. Because if you spend the time to work on yourself, work on knowing what your flaw, what your flaws are. I mean, one of my biggest flaws is time management. We fight that all the time here, because in fact, we were just going through it tonight, because the next 3 weeks are just going to be killer for us. And I mean, side note, you're probably going to get, if you get a podcast every Friday for the next 3 weeks, it's probably going to be because we recorded 3 this next week.
Yep.
Because if it doesn't get done before next, when are you leaving?
I'm leaving for the Ozarks with my boys. Every summer we have a little bit of a boys trip.
I didn't get invited.
We're going to the Ozarks. I'm going to be gone in early first week of June, and then that next week we're going to the Pork Expo. So we're we got to get our stuff done, and the only way we can do that is we're going to have to cram it all into this week. We're going to have to do some freaking time management. But I also think when you say we all got flaws, I think it's really important to bet on your strengths. I mean, you obviously gotta nail the flaws that are definitely a necessity of living, like time management. I feel like if you're not good at that, you should probably get good at that, because that's just a life skill that you're going to have to use in every asset of your life. But I feel like as far as career-wise and like finding out who you are, figure out the stuff that you're really good at and double down on those. Because if all you do is focus on your flaws and you weren't gifted and born with being good at those things, I probably wouldn't double down on those. But if you're good and you have a creative mind, and you've always had a creative mind, or if you're really athletic, I'd probably double down on being athletic or being really creative. Whatever it is. But work on flaws that you got to have in every asset of your life. Everything you do, you got to have these certain set of skills. And if it's a flaw to you, work on it. But double down on your strengths, because that's how you're going to really excel in life.
And, what you're capable of, what's in your genre that you're currently doing, if you don't think you're capable of taking the next step, then who's going to give you that opportunity? Yep. If you don't seek out ways to improve, to get more knowledge about what you're already good at, you're going to get stagnant. And if you get stagnant, you're going to get bored. And when you get bored, then bad things start to happen.
And you also feel hopeless. Like, I mean, you got to have hope to be able to progress in life. If you don't have that confidence in yourself, you don't have that, if you're not betting on yourself, you kind of feel hopeless, and you kind of feel, I don't know, you don't feel like you're going anywhere. So if you bet on yourself and you're the only one that bets on yourself, and it might take some other people to encourage you, but they might not realize that. For me, when I first started this thing, when I first started this brand, I didn't have a lot of believers in me. I was betting on myself that I could do this social media brand. And at first, no one was really encouraging me to do that. And because I did that, I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And slowly, people started encouraging me because I seen I was doing it. So you might not have a bunch of people that encourage you, but that's why it's really important to, in the beginning, but that's why it's really important to encourage or bet on yourself first, because the people might follow you afterwards. They don't always have to encourage you to start.
Yeah, and the other side of that is as you progress, you're also going to have people that they may come around to encourage you, but you also may have people that you've surrounded yourself with that are kind of in the same place that you are, and they're not going to be comfortable with you wanting to go to that next level because they may not want to put in the time, and they may not want to do the hard work of looking at themselves, and they won't be encouraging.
Right. They'll find, because when they look at you, and if you do decide to bet on yourself and you do start progressing in whatever you want to progress in, and they look at you and you tell them about it, or, saying you're doing this thing, it's like a mirror looking back at them. When you say you're accomplishing these things or you're going to pursue these things, when they look at you and listen to you, it's like they're looking at a mirror and they think that, oh, he's doing that. So, and then they start thinking about themselves. Well, maybe I should do that. But then they feel like crap because they don't want to do that or whatever. So that's just with everything, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be betting on yourself. Anytime you talk about your accomplishments to the wrong people that don't want you to win, I mean,
yeah,
they take it to heart.
We were just talking about this the other day. One thing that's interesting me, I had a message thread going with a guy that we've done a few. We know each other through social media, and we've done some work together, all three of us. And he's an aggressive fella, and he has come. I mean, he's very successful, and but he works.
He's a hustler.
He's a hustler. And I told Sawyer, one thing that I think that is probably good about where he's at versus where I feel that I know I am is, and you saw a glimpse of it the last podcast, some of the stuff that I start thinking about, some of the ideas that run through my mind, there's not very many people that I can have those conversations with without getting this look of,
you're crazy.
Well, or I don't have any idea what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like they just, and so,
or they take it as, I always feel like if you say those kinds of things to people and they're not the right people to talk those topics to, they feel like you're trying to act like you're smart.
Yeah.
And when you're really not, you're just genuinely passionate about those topics, but they think that you're coming off like trying to be a smart ass. Yeah. But you're not. You just, those are the things you think you're passionate about.
I enjoy conversations with people that are a lot smarter than I am.
Well,
that's just about everybody.
That's
pretty much.
That's where you want to be, though. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
You really don't. You want to, I mean, this is from people that I listen to, but they always say you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around with, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if all you're doing is spending time with people that, have lower beliefs than you and that
don't want to go anywhere,
or when you talk about things that you talk about furthering yourself and they kind of look at you like, what are you talking about? You made me want to switch up a little bit of who you spend your time with, because spending your time with people that are going to progress you and want you to come forward and move you up and wherever you're trying to go, that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. And if you're in a rural community like ours, I mean, I don't know, we're farmers, so we don't get out much, but it's hard to find people in small town America because we're not around a ton of people. But there's people out there, and social media is giving us that opportunity because we found some guys like that. But
so we're in full-blown graduation season, as a lot of places are. And so we were at a graduation party this weekend, and, you have to have that little voice in your head because you have all these people that you have, you see people that are casual acquaintances that you don't see that often, or you see them every once in a while, and they ask you, oh, what's new? What's going on? And I know that they don't have any idea that This'll Do is going on, or the podcast is going on, or any of that's going on.
Right.
And so you have to make the decision.
Do I want to really go down this rabbit hole?
Because in where we're at, you're going to get, there's some of those people you could say, well, yeah, we're doing a podcast, and they don't know what a podcast is, which that's a smaller group. I mean, you about got to be living under a rock to not know what a podcast is anymore. Or they're just going to look at you like, what are you, what?
Are you just doing that for fun?
Yeah.
You making any money doing that?
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
And so you just, what's new? Oh, not much. Corn's looking good. Wish it'd stop raining, Oh, can't seem to find a happy medium. Oh, yeah. All right. See you later.
Yeah.
So, I got off, but
no, you're good. I mean,
along with that, talking about people that aren't necessarily supportive of you, you're not going to be, if you're going to step out, if you're going to be different, if you're going to be different, if you're going to try to move the needle on your career, on your life, you're going to have failures. I mean, guaranteed you're going to have failures. But the best thing I can tell you about that, and this is nothing earth-shattering, but you will learn, and I have learned far more from what I've screwed up and the failures that I've made than I probably learned from the successes. The successes
100%
are pleasurable, and you sure feel good about them, but that just means that you were right, and
you were wrong 1,000 times before you were actually right.
Right. And knowing what's right, you have to be wrong. You have to be wrong enough to know what doesn't work to figure out what does. Now, once in a while, I mean, there's guys out there that, luck of the draw, they really hit it right off the gate and they got it right.
Right.
But that doesn't
happen that often. I think it's funny that the education system, I mean, they always want you to, failure, I feel like in society and just what you're taught when you're a kid is like failure's bad. Failure's bad. You don't want to fail. When you fail, you're a loser. You don't want to be a failure. When you get an F on a paper, it's a failure. But like once you get out of school and, you got to fail to learn. Like that's the ultimate learning experience. How many times I failed trying to learn how to video edit? You know how many times I failed trying to raise pigs? You know how many times I failed doing whatever it is I do?
Staying on the row.
Staying on the row. Exactly. We don't have auto steer, so staying on the row, all those things. If I wouldn't have failed, I wouldn't have learned how to ultimately do it successfully. So don't look at your failures as a fail. Look at them as a learning experience, because the second you turn the word failure into learning, this is a learning moment, you're 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
Side note, Sawyer steer is not the same as auto steer. Just for any of those that are getting confused. It's not a name brand. That's not a brand.
That's not a brand you should be proud of.
No. Boy.
Well, I was going to say, you'll never be successful if you don't bet on yourself. And that's huge, because there's a author out there, and this guy's a personal trainer. His name's Tim Grover. I don't know if any of you guys know who Tim Grover is, but he wrote a book called Relentless. And he was the personal trainer for Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. He trains Russell Wilson. I mean, he trains all kinds of elite athletes in all different kinds of sports. And I was listening to a podcast the other day with him on there, and he just said, not only is betting on yourself important because, it's good to bet on yourself, but there's a confidence of once you bet on yourself and you get it, and you really have that confidence that you bet it on yourself and it worked. All those killer athletes that he trained said that those killer athletes he trained they all have this killer instinct of them where they have this just insane amount of confidence inside them that, when they go out on game night, in their head, they are like, I'm going to destroy this. I'm going to absolutely destroy this. And that's how he said every person he's trained, if they didn't have that, they didn't turn out to be anything. But the ones that he trained all had that killer instinct. The ones that were successful all had that killer instinct. And he said you can relate that just to everything, not just athletics, but to business as well. He says business and athletics are the exact same way. If you got that killer instinct, you got to have that killer instinct, or you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna push through when it gets hard.
Yeah.
So
and it is hard. I mean, that's anything worth achieving is hard.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you're, I don't care if you're a welder or you're the staff accountant. If you're going to be the best at it, it's two different type of training and two different mindsets. Not mindsets. The mindsets are probably the same, but it's different, but it's the same in the fact you've got to put in the time, whatever it is, to get better, and you've got to work harder than everybody else that's doing it. And, you're using sports analogy, and this is me dating myself a little bit, but there's a great story about Jerry Rice when he was playing for the 49ers, and they had won the Super Bowl. And I'm not so sure. I think that this is when they won it, and the Super Bowl was actually at Los Angeles Stadium.
San Francisco,
yeah.
Yep.
And so they win the Super Bowl, and the guy telling the story was on the team, but I can't remember who he was. And he went back to the stadium the next day to get something. And Jerry Rice was there running routes. This is the day after they won the Super Bowl.
The day after. Yep.
And he was just like, what in the hell are you doing? And Jerry's like, what? He's like, next season starts today because it doesn't matter. We got to keep going. And there's a lot of stories about he had this route that he ran up this hill. I don't know where it was, and guys would want to go work out with him because they wanted to be around him because he was a winner and because he was driven.
Right.
And
they wanted to train like
they
him.
wanted to train like
they
him.
wanted the secret sauce.
Yeah. And he'd do whatever with him, and then he'd be like, "You want to go on a run?" And he'd go up this hill, and nobody was ever behind him by the time he got to the top.
No.
But he was at the peak of his performance, his game, but he didn't act like it. He never, he didn't rest on he just kept working, kept working. And that's
the other thing with what Tim Grover said. He said, these guys, they had that confidence in themselves, and they were super confident and almost had an arrogance to them inside.
Right.
But on the outside, they didn't show that unless it became game time. Then it was personal. I mean, they were going to be savages once it come game time, but they would never show that they were arrogant.
Right.
But inside themselves, they were arrogant. I'm going to kick the shit out of these guys. I mean, that's how they were in their head.
I think you can do that when you are to the point that it mentally.
Yeah, you bet on yourself and you knew it worked.
You don't have to be arrogant.
Right.
You don't have to project any false persona. You can just be you because
you put in the work.
You put in the work.
You bet on yourself.
Mm-hmm, so you knew. And that's a great place to be. And it's hard to get there, but if you can put in the time, it's definitely worth it if you can get there.
Right. And one other thing I wanted to say about, betting on yourself and, working on things. It's like, I think betting on yourself can be multidimensional in the fact that you don't have to just bet on yourself when it comes to your career. You can bet on yourself. If you love your job and you feel like you're doing as much work as you want to do, and you feel like you're at the top and you're content with where you're at as far as your career goes, but you look on the other side, you look at your body in the mirror and you're like, I'd like to change this. I want to bet on myself, on my fitness, and get better at my fitness. you can bet on yourself in all different kinds of areas. It doesn't just have to be your career. Granted, you do work about, what is it, like 85% of the time you spend on this planet, you're working. So, I mean, that's a big part of your life. But if you're happy with your career and you're happy with what you do, try to find some other area in your life that you can bet on yourself, whether it be your knowledge, whether it be your fitness, whether it be your career or whatever else it is. You know, that's a big thing.
Yeah, if you think that all other aspects of your life are perfect, just ask your significant other if there's anything that they might think need a little work, and then try not to look stupid when that list gets a little long, because there's always a lot of things personally that you can work on.
Right.
And I was just sitting here thinking about, you know, all the hats that I've worn, but the most, I think the first time that I realized that I really had to bet on myself and I had to strive to be the best I could be was when I got into sales. When I became a salesman at Precision, that was at a time in my life where, well, for one thing, I needed every dollar I could get because I had these 2 kids and my wife, and my parents were getting elderly, and you know, the farm here at that time.
You hadn't built any of your hog
Yeah, we hadn't
buildings
built
yet.
any of the hog buildings yet, and that sales job was kind of a lifeline to get me where I wanted to go. And there are a lot of people that had been doing in that construction business and selling hog buildings and doing the equipment and all that had been doing it a long time, and they were good. They were good at what they did. They knew. And I was kind of the young buck, even though I wasn't that young at that point when I had started. I was in my
30s.
late 30s probably.
But it was your start of your sales career.
Right. But you know what I did was I sat down and I knew the mechanical side of a hog building probably better than any salesman out there, because I had not only had I worked on the crew that put buildings together, but I had fixed them and I'd fixed everything in them. But then I'd farrowed pigs. I was a farrow to finish guy. So, you know, I'd move pigs up an alley, and I'd washed farrowing crates, and I knew how pigs had to move, and I knew what I wanted and what I always complained about that I didn't have in the crummy hog building that I had. And I also had that same desire, because at that point I knew that I wanted to build a hog building, and that really pushed me to just drill down on knowing the package, knowing the print, knowing the proposal. Most of you, a lot of people have had these psychological profile tests like DISC. DISC is one of them. There's 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember all the ones that I've done, but you know, they tell you what kind of a personality you have and a bunch of stuff about you, what you're likely to do, and this and that. And when I became a salesman at Precision, I think I'd done it a year or 2, and they decided that they were going to have this DISC assessment done, and they had some company come do it. And I don't remember much about it other than the guy that went through my scores, my answers with my questions. He told me, he said, you're very confident in your sales ability, and that might be your biggest flaw. I would say that you are the kind of person that if you drove to someone's house to go through a building proposal with them, and you got there and you realized you had forgotten the bid, you would just go ahead and go in without the bid and just
wing it.
And I started laughing so hard, because I literally had sold a building to a guy in Missouri, and I had driven down there. I'd driven 2.5 hours down there from Wellman. And I got down there, and this guy was building a 2480 Cargill-style building. 70 wide, and I had the bid for a 50 wide by 400 small pen tunnel natural building. And I was like,
oh, crap.
Oh, man. But I just went ahead and went through it, and I got the contract signed. So I bet on myself on that one, and it worked. But he was right in the fact that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. But at that point, I was just cocky enough. I thought I could get it done. But
it was back to that kind of arrogance that you had inside you, but you weren't progressing that on to everybody else. You had that belief in yourself that, well, you kind of went through that really fast.
Yeah.
But when you started your sales career, you sat down and you said, I'm going to be the best salesman I can be because, one, your back was up against the wall.
Yeah, and that's a powerful motivator because I needed that payday. If I was going to get to where I wanted to go and I was going to be able to build a hog building, I had to make the money. But I also had, I was still shoveling the hole in from when I got out of Faro to Finish because that wasn't a very easy thing to get out of. But I put in the time. I put in the time. I knew every bolt. I knew what the amp draw was of every fan. I knew what the calculation was for the air. And a lot of that stuff never came up. But if I ever ran into somebody that was the competitor that would try to pick something apart, I would have the comeback for it. And that was just, I made the decision that if I was going to do this, I was going to be the best at it that I could be. And that's what you have to do. Whether, like I said, whatever you're doing, whether you're the accountant, whether you're the guy selling shoes, whether you're the guy at the Jiffy Lube, you know what?
And I think that, you said that you went down there and sold that guy 2 hours away or whatever. You had the wrong bid. But I'm sure after that first, you did all the work you had to do up front when you first got the job. And then you sold one building and you sold two buildings and sold three buildings. And then that first bet you made on yourself, it just compounded. Then you got to that killer instinct.
Yeah.
It's sales, but you got to that killer instinct, like Tim Grover says, where it's like, shit, I brought the wrong bid, but I know I can come in here and just get the sale.
Yeah.
And you didn't probably have that in the beginning.
No, I didn't.
But you did. You will never have the confidence in yourself if you don't take that first step and make that first bet on yourself.
That's right.
Because if you wouldn't have never even done that work up front, and let's say you went out and tried to sell a building and you failed, and you failed and failed and failed.
Let's back it up. If I wouldn't have had the courage to walk into Claude Griner's office and tell him, because we had a salesman that quit, and I just basically went in there and told him, I want to be that salesman, because if I can't be a salesman, you're going to have to find a service guy too, because I was at the point where I had gone about as far as I could go doing that, and I knew that I couldn't keep running the hours I was running and doing what I was doing. I had to make a change, and I had to get to that next level to get where I wanted to go. So, part of it is just having the gumption to make that change, or to try to get that promotion, or to learn that skill that's hard to learn, but it sets you apart. And I won't ramble, but I will tell you the best compliment I ever got. So when I was selling, probably one of the best salesmen that I ever ran into was JD Meyer. And if you're out there, this is a kudos to you, because you were about the best. You were about the only competition I really had. But he worked for Hogslat, and he was one of the only guys running down in Missouri when all these Cargill barns were going up. And I never really worried if I went to somebody and they said, "Oh, I'm getting a bid from Longhorn," or "I'm getting a bid from these guys," or "I'm getting a bid." But if he said, "Oh, I got a bid from JD," I was like, dang it. Because JD was actually pretty good. And he was really good. And he knew his product. He knew what he was doing. And those guys actually had to put together their own bids. So they had to they basically were their own estimators. So, it was a lot harder deal. I was blessed because PSI had their own estimators that I gave them the info. They did the bid, and then, fancied it all up, and I had everything. All I had to do was show up and sell it. But anyway, I had this guy down around Memphis, and I sold him a building, and And JD called this guy after he'd signed the contract.
With you?
Yeah. And the guy said that he bought it from me, and he's like, well, that doesn't surprise me. He goes, when Whistler shows up, he just won't leave until you sign the contract. It's pretty much pointless because it doesn't matter how long it takes. He's just going to sit there till you sign the contract. And I always remember him saying that. But anyway.
Relentless. You're relentless.
Yeah.
But that's another
And that's
thing.
what you got to be.
You got to be relentless. And, another thing I was listening to you, and I was thinking, you bet on your strengths too, because, you know the hog business better than anybody else. You had that long journey of working in a crew, managing the crew, then becoming the service guy, or if I flip-flop those or whatever.
You're good.
You knew everything about hog barns, and you stayed in that industry, and that did you a lot of good because you made a really good career out of sales, and you bet on your strengths. You didn't go and say, if you didn't, you either could have said, I'm going to quit this job being a service guy, and never went into Claude Greiner's office and said, I need this sales job.
Yeah.
And you could have went and found something else, but instead you got the gumption and said, I want the job, and you got it, and that did you a lot of good. So
yeah, it did.
You bet on your strengths.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
That was just an observation I made.
Thanks, son.
So Dad kind of gave you a little bit of his the time he bet on himself. I'm going to give you kind of mine. So when I was 18 years old, and I touched on this a little bit in the first one, I was getting ready to make the decision on whether I wanted to attend college or not. And anyone that's 18 years old, or anyone that's gone through this process, and you're one person that was questioning if you were going to go to college or not, it's kind of a very, very, very stressful situation, because on one side you got people telling you, it's the only way to go, and the mainstream norm is you go to college. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. You just go to college. Duh. Why wouldn't you go to college? So you have everybody in your school telling you got your friends telling you that, you got your girlfriend's parents telling you that, you got a girlfriend telling you that, you got your teachers telling you that. I mean, everybody seems like they're telling you that. I will say my parents really didn't care either way. They didn't push me to go either way. They said they support me, so that was nice. But that was honestly one of the toughest decisions I had to make. That was probably one of the first adult decisions I had to make, because it was a lot of, I went a lot of back and forth, pros and cons, but I sat down with myself and I said, do I like school? The answer was no. Am I going to go to college to learn something that I'm going to use off the farm? Probably not, because I thought, you know what? I'm going to come back here and I'm probably going to farm and do this, whether it's now or 4 years later. So I made the decision to bet on myself and go against the norm of going to college, and I bet on myself to stay here and farm and start choring hog buildings. And around here, people say, "Oh, you're just choring hog buildings. You're choring hogs. That's got to be a crap life, choring hogs, whatever." But what people didn't really realize with that was that's not where I wanted to end. That's not where I wanted to start, and that's not where I just wanted to stay my entire life. When I made that bet on myself, I knew I was going to raise hogs and farm, but I had a goal in mind, and I had, a dream. I wanted to grow our farm, and I wanted to make it viable for another generation. And that's kind of my goal. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And at first, when I first made that decision, it was like the first year when I was 18 and everyone else went off to college, all my friends, all that went off to college, and I was at home. It was really hard, but you
were very unpleasant to be around, especially on the weekends.
Yeah, but I put myself up against a wall, essentially. I mean, I literally sat back and I said, well, this is it. This is real life. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just chore hogs and be content with your life and stay here? Which, that's not a bad living, but to me, I wanted more. And I just sat there and I put my back up against the wall and I said, well, what are we going to do from here? Kind of that Lawrence Whistler mentality. My grandpa, what are you going to do about it? So, that's kind of where we are now. I went and I started farming, learning all the things I needed to learn. Then I saw the opportunity with social media, and, I started documenting our lives day to day as farmers. And that was another bet I made on myself, because I'd never been on camera before. I wasn't a public speaker. I didn't know how to talk on camera, but I made the jump and I went into it. And now we're here we are, and I think we do a pretty good job putting out great videos on our farm channel. And now we're here starting a podcast, and we're betting on ourselves here because we've never public speaked. I mean, public spoked. We've never public spoke.
We were never public speakers.
We were never public speakers. Yeah, sorry. My grammar got messed up there, but
it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I made the bet on that too, and you just got to keep making those bets. But that was the first real big bet I made on myself to give me the confidence to just keep making bets on myself like that. You know, that was the first real big one, and it was hard, but I've grown more as a person in the last 3 years than I ever did being in school. And it's just because I had that relentless mentality that I wasn't going to stay where I was, and I was going to make my dream come true no matter what. And
yeah,
all that started because I made that first bet on myself.
Yeah. And what I was going to say to that is don't box yourself in, because you really don't know what opportunity is going to come. And when I was just sitting here listening to you, you know, when you made the decision that you were going to stay, you were going to come farm with me, you didn't know what your side hustle was going to look like.
No.
You knew that you wanted to do something with social media, and you were dabbling in it then.
Yeah,
but you didn't have any idea where it was going to go.
No, I didn't.
You just knew that you had to do something, and that it was you had to learn a lot about social media. I mean, whether you were filming our day to day, or you were filming something entirely different, you knew that was the direction you wanted to go.
That was the side hustle I wanted to go because I thought I had the biggest upside. Yeah. That's something I left out. When I started social media, I had no freaking idea that I was going to become a farm YouTuber or whatever. You know, I had no idea. I was dabbling into fitness. I was trying to just figure out myself in this. I was trying to figure out social media on the same time I was trying to figure out myself too, and see what I was interested in and all that stuff. But, you know, then I came across a farm influencer or farm YouTuber, and I'm like, you know what? I can probably do that, you know? And at that time I did so much, you know, work on learning social media and learning all the things you got to do on it that, when that opportunity came, I was ready for it. And that's a good point. You'll never know all of it. You'll never know when you make a decision, you'll never know everything when you make that decision. But if you feel obligated that that's the best decision for you, you're going to figure out the rest. You'll figure it out, and it might not come to you right away, but it will come in due time. So just be patient and just keep working, keep working.
Yeah. And I'll add that, I had no dreams or aspirations of doing anything with social media other than posting my usual picture of Torque's bacon sandwich on my birthday on Facebook. That was about the extent of my social media skills. But you know what? Today, I love doing this.
I do too.
And I like where it's taken us. And it's like now this is an opportunity that I had no idea that it would ever come my way. You know, I was just thankful, and I still am. I'm just thankful that there's another generation here farming with me, because when my oldest son, when Clay graduated UNI, I knew there was no way he was going to come. He had no interest in farming. I mean, I knew he had no interest in farming back long before that. But Sawyer, I didn't think that he would end up wanting to do it. And so when he made that decision, I was happy for that. But everything that's happened since then, it wasn't on my radar, but I'm thankful that it ended up that way, because it's been a great ride so far, and
it's been a great add to the farm, I think.
We're just getting started.
We are just getting started. It's a lot more work. You know, that's the one thing. You know, it's always great to bet on yourself and want more for yourself, but just realize it's not easy, and it's a lot of work. So you really got to have that why. And for me, it was, I want to make the farm viable for another generation. That's my biggest goal. And, you know, I want to do a lot of other things too, but that was my biggest goal. And I knew that we had to figure out a way to produce some income off the farm. But, on top of that, what we're doing, it's good for not just for us, but for the ag community as well. We're spreading great things about ag and showing people what happens, showing people our day-to-day lives, and
dispelling a lot of falsehoods too.
Yeah, dispelling a lot of misconceptions. I think it's a really good thing. So yeah, but that was kind of my biggest, that's my biggest bet on myself, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And that gave me the confidence to keep going. So just make that first bet on yourself. If you're, whatever it is, if it's in fitness, if it's in your physical, whatever, if it's your knowledge, if it's your career, just make that first bet.
Yeah. We'll close this down. But who's the older guy that wears the 3-piece suits that yells at the people?
Dan Pena.
Dan Pena. I just saw Dan Pena the other day, and he was talking about just starting. And I will not tell you everything he said.
He does a lot of explicit content.
Dan does not.
Savage.
He's an old guy, and he doesn't care what anybody thinks.
Not
but he said
correct at all.
Basically, what he said is, just get off your butt and start. Because if you would have gotten off your butt 10 years ago, you wouldn't have thought about getting off your butt 5 years ago, and you wouldn't be sitting here watching me now because you would have already done it. And sometimes that's the hardest part. And when you bet on yourself, you are only accountable to yourself. And that it's a lot easier when you have somebody that is pushing you, because pushing yourself, it's tough because it's just so hard.
All the blame's on you, all the responsibility's on you, everything's on you.
The upside's great because when you accomplish it, it feels really, really good. Yeah,
that's the other thing that we don't say. Once you make that first bet on yourself and you're right, and you're right, and you made the good decision. When I got out of college, or when I got out of high school and I didn't go to college, I didn't know if this was going to be the right decision for me. But when it took me a year and a half, 2 years to really realize that was the right decision. And I felt damn good about the decision I made after that,
Yeah.
And you might not know that right away. And this is the other thing that I'll say about decisions. This is from Gary Vaynerchuk, a guy that I listen to a lot. But he says, everyone's always contemplating decisions like it's going out of style. That what if? But the one thing you'll never know the other side of the decision. So I will never know what it feels like if I would have went to college. You'll never know the other side of whatever the decision you're trying to make. It's 50-50. You either go with one or you go with the other. And you'll never know the other one. So just let it go. Pick one and go. Because if you just sit there and contemplate, you're never going to start. You're never going to start.
And that's the worst.
I'm indecisive as hell. I am indecisive as hell when it comes to going to Chick-fil-A or Poncheros. I don't know which one I'm going to go to. But when it comes to big life decisions, you got to try to be fast with it.
Set it and forget it.
Obviously spend some time on it because that's a critical, decision, but don't spend a ton of time on it. Don't wait a year to do it or 2 years to do it, 3 years to do it.
The most important thing is starting.
Right.
Whatever the decision is, make the decision and start.
Yep, and you'll never know the other outcome of that decision. So just pick one, stick with it, and go.
I think that's a good ending point. I think we should make the decision to not run this one an hour and 40 minutes.
I like that decision. I think you guys do too. So we're going to try to keep these episodes 30 minutes to an hour. If we go over that, we're really passionate about the topic.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's some things, some things that may go a little longer.
Yeah, there is. But I hope you guys enjoy us and don't get sick of hearing us,
Yes, and the guests are coming. We've got some people. We've reached out to some people.
We've got some interest.
And we've got some pretty good people lined up that we think will be really interesting to sit down and talk to. Honestly, the biggest hurdle that we have is anyone that comes on the Barn Talk podcast today has to climb the ladder to get up here. And we think that it might be a little more professional if we got our staircase in.
Yeah, so we got to install a staircase.
In a crate downstairs is a steel spiral staircase. And it needs a 60-inch by 60-inch opening that we've got to cut in the floor of the haymow. And as we said, we are not looking for any extra stuff to do, but we're going to get it done. And once we get that done,
we should probably get a fan in here because I'm sweating bullets right now.
It might not be bad.
Or send them a message, say wear your swim trunks or something.
Maybe we can get a maybe AP can hook us up with one of those portable porta-coolers.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be pretty nice.
AAP, if you're listening.
We're going to the World Pork Expo, and we'll have to hit them up. Maybe you distract them. They might have one there, and if you distract them, I'll just start wheeling that sucker down the aisle and see if we can just take her right out to the line.
Get one right in here.
Yep.
But so we're gonna have some guests on here in the future. Got some interest, but keep giving us some ideas, guys. Keep throwing some comments down on who you want to see on here because we're gonna keep sending messages, try to get more interest and try to hopefully get some more guests on here. So.
Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like.
Tell us what you like, what we can do better on. Give us your thoughts on what we talked about and if you agree or disagree and all that stuff. So hope you guys have a great rest of your week great weekend and a great next week. We'll see you back next Friday and keep on keeping on.
See ya.